It's official. Boys that like boys and girls who like girls can now get married in England and Wales, joining the
Yes.
13 other countries worldwide that allow same-sex marriages. Yes, the French and the Argentinians may have beaten us there, but at least we can claim moral superiority over the Yanks.
Yeah, and the Lords and the Commons, they were debating this over the past week or so. And some of the highlights that I particularly enjoyed were Labour's Diane Abbott responding to her constituents' opposition to her support of the bill by saying that human rights are non-negotiable. And the Tory MP Nick Herbert, and yes, there are Tories who supported this bill, surprise, surprise, who said that this reflected a fundamental change and a change of attitudes for the better in British society. So it was pretty cool. But what now for the LGBT movement? Full equality has been achieved, right? Wasn't marriage the last hurdle? In the words of the Buffy cast in the musical episode, where do we go from here? So, Jimmy, where do you think we go from here?
Well, the most obvious place for the LGBT movement to go in terms of British politics is obviously Northern Ireland and Scotland, which aren't included in this bill.
Yeah. We kind of know that Scotland is going to be passing this bill relatively soon. There were a lot of talks that Scotland was going to be the first part of the UK to have same-sex marriage as law, but we beat them to it. So good for England and Wales, yay for us. But it looks like in Northern Ireland there'll be more opposition, mainly because of the strong links between religion and politics that there are in that region of the UK.
I mean, do you see it being quite a long, drawn-out battle in Northern Ireland?
A long, drawn-out battle? I think there's going to be some really, really loud voices. I think that the debates that we've had in Westminster have been particularly tame compared to what we will probably end up seeing in Northern Ireland. I think maybe even something closer to the kind of debates that we see in the US, because let's be honest, religious people have a lot of conviction and belief that they are right quite a lot of the time.
How dare they?
How dare they? I think it's going to be difficult for them to not pass a same-sex marriage bill, because otherwise there's the chance of Northern Ireland having to pay an awful lot of money in terms of people taking the breach of their rights in Northern Ireland to the courts.
Will they be taking them to the European Human Rights Court? Is
that's possible, and a good thing about the European Court of Human Rights. What is this? It will be something along those lines that, because the rest of the country, the rest of the nation has decided on this as a human right, that there can't be a specific section of the country that doesn't pass this kind of a law.
So I'm a little bit confused at the moment. Does that mean if you get married in England and then move to Northern Ireland, you're still legally married, or does that mean it downgrades to a civil partnership, or what?
Those are the things that are going to have to be debated in Northern Ireland. They don't know how to respond to this bill yet. Scotland, the way that they're responding is obviously push through their own marriage bill and then nobody has to worry. In Northern Ireland, they're still unsure, and actually, to be completely honest, after even reading the bill, I'm unsure as to how a same-sex marriage is going to be addressed in Northern Ireland. Am I going to be downgraded to a civil marriage? To a civil partnership? I don't know. And nobody really does know until they start doing the whole debating and yelling at each other thing.
So on this particular issue, is it the case that Northern Ireland always have to respond to Westminster legislation? Because I know they sort of conduct their own affairs, but I don't know to what extent that is the case.
So they get a certain amount of leeway, obviously because of the history of the place. But with something like this that can be taken up as a human right, the rest of the nation allows me to do this. Why won't Northern Ireland?
Yeah.
I think that this will fall under the umbrella of something that Northern Ireland will have to adopt as part of its own legislation in order for there not to be some really quite damaging court battles going on.
Well, so I mean that's the Northern Irish and Scottish issue. What are some? Actually, the other issue I was thinking about is the way the Church of England has sort of responded to this in the way, obviously there's been the triple lock.
So I love the Tories at the moment because, well, not the Tories, but David Cameron, because he clearly pushed this through, not for any kind of political posturing, not for kudos points in his party, but he did it because this is clearly something that him and Nick Clegg believe in. This is something that they believe
say
is
that,
a human
but
right.
David Cameron did oppose the repeal of Section 28 not so long ago.
Yeah, but look at what he's done now. I think that what he's done now has more than made up for that, to be fair.
I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm saying, is this a real change of attitude, or is this the Tories grasping at moral authority as they do every so often?
I genuinely think that it's a personable thing, that like everybody under a certain age in the Tory party, they all know that this is, like, they're on the right side of history with this. I love them for that, but on the other side of things, there's the actual content of the bill that says that all religious institutions, they can all opt in. So apparently the Quakers are going to opt in. The certain Jewish factions, they've said that they're going to opt into gay marriage and perform gay ceremonies. If Islam were to change dramatically and decide that they wanted to perform these ceremonies, then they'd be able to opt in as well. The only religious institution in England and Wales that won't be able to opt in by law is the Church of England, and the Church of England as governed in Wales. And I think that like, obviously it was to keep people happy and the religious people in the party happy, but I think they missed a trick there.
I understood it as it was to do with, again, the Court of Human Rights. It was because the Church of England is a, established church.
Mm-hmm.
They're not allowed to, breach certain legislation that the government puts through, so I believe...
So do you think that this is something that is going to be problematic in the future for the Church of England?
Well, I read a lot of articles around, it was around the time, I guess, of the woman bishops vote, where people were saying that sooner or later, if Westminster pushes through enough legislation that contravenes what most Anglicans believe, it's going to be the case that the church and the state are going to have to be severed at some point or another. I mean, partly for reasons just of practicality, but also for reasons of, court battles, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a real shame, and also I think we know that going forward with the LGBT movement, that there is still going to be pushback from religious institutions. So the head of the Roman Catholic Church in England and Wales, Archbishop Vincent Nichols, and I think we should hasten to add, not a relation of the lovely Jimmy, he said that these new laws supporting, pushing through same-sex marriage, that these laws broke the existing legal links between the institution of marriage and sexual complementarity, and that with this new legislation, marriage has now become an institution in which openness to children, and with it the responsibility on fathers and mothers to remain together to care for children born into their family unit, are no longer central. So really groundbreaking arguments there for anti-gay marriage.
It's just the same old shit that people have been throwing at the topic for years.
Let's not call it shit. Let's call it. It is the same, persistent.
It's the same sort of traditional hierarchical family thing, though, that certain social conservatives have been saying, even in response to things like divorce law and things like that.
And the abortion debate and
that too. Pretty much everything to do with marriage, relationships, and sexual activity, which seems to interest those people quite a lot.
Yeah, it's curious. It's curious. But
it's bi-curious. What it is.
It's bi-curious. Wow, that was really good, Jimmy. Well done. But they, the point is, they're not going to be backing down, just because this bill has been pushed through. And so we still have a fight on our hands.
What do you see as other issues that the LGBT community has to work on in the next couple of years?
Well, something really personal for me is the horrifically outdated law that gay men who are sexually active are not allowed to give blood. And obviously this harks back to the early 1980s when there was the start of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. Yeah. And so obviously they needed to protect people because there weren't certain ways of being able to detect HIV. Gay men were and still are the highest at-risk group. But nowadays, now that HIV in the population has gone down so significantly that all blood is screened for all diseases, we shouldn't be treated as... I feel like I'm treated as like a diseased person, to be honest. No, you can't like help out your community by giving blood to help people out. And it like on a really personal level, it sucks because it's something that I'd really like to be able to do.
I mean, well, what do you see the chances being of the situation resolving? Do you think it's going to be an easy thing to sort of push through, especially now that gay marriage is on the books?
I'd love it to be. So in 2011, they addressed this and they changed the law so that it wasn't gay men who, like anybody who had ever had sex with a man ever. It was only gay men who were sexually active who were going to be excluded from being able to give blood. So that opens up a lot of doors to all of the gay men that don't have sex. So fantastic, great. Open the doors to us, why don't you? But I don't understand why they didn't go the full hog there, because the thing is, in the UK there are 40,000 gay men living with HIV. In the UK as well, obviously there's overlap with this group, but black men, there's 30,000 black men living with HIV, and nobody is talking about blocking black men from being able to give blood, and it's a weird double standard that we still have, harking back from the days of the HIV epidemic.
Well, yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, to be honest. It does seem a strange law to pass to sort of... I mean, it sounds like one of those laws that was designed by committee. Some people were saying, oh, we should just strike the law from the books, and some people wanted to cling on to some sort of, discrimination against sexually active gay men.
Yeah. I wasn't in the country when this passed, so I'm not overly aware of it. But it's just, that's definitely still an area where the LGBT community is going to have to step up and really start fighting for. Because to be completely honest, we had an easy ride with gay marriage. 70% of the UK was in our favour, was backing us. We had the vast majority of MPs voting for us, like cross-party support. We had a really easy ride. Organisations like Stonewall didn't really have to push through anything. But with, there's still a long way to go for it to be completely... for us to be treated exactly the same way across all sections of society, and I don't think that we should be forgetting that.
I mean, do you think it's more of a social battle from that here on in, now that a lot of the legal barriers that used to prohibit
Jimmy, you know how I feel about this, and you feel the same way. We just need to wait for the crazies to die, and then it will be fine. Give it another 20 to 30 years, and everything will be gravy.
So just push through that blood donation legislation, then you can just chill out for the rest of your life then.
Well, no, but then where's the fun?
Wouldn't know about that. Alright, I think we need to wrap up this topic now. The next topic will be about Edward Snowden and the NSA.
We used to drink bottled gins and the whole world had to sing. Meet the trees and unsuch bar. We used to dance, so take a chance. I lost my mind to young romance. Yeah, I don't mind, I got it back. Half the time I'm waiting for a second chance. Half the time